Mr. Jones. I got two bad jokes for you to start our industry
Great.
update today.
I'm sitting down. Go ahead.
What was the Easter Bunny's favorite restaurant?
I don't know. What was it?
IHOP. So the other day, Saturday, I was hanging around waiting on the sun to come out. And the problem is it just never dawned on me.
That's terrible.
It's horrible. So
That
there you
one's
go.
really
Happy
bad.
Monday.
Thanks for sharing
It
that.
is April 10th. And we're in the second quarter.
Can you believe it?
I can't believe it. One and two, I remember in the fourth quarter, I'm going, man, we got to get through the first quarter. Well, we made it. And, no matter what I think, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. Right.
Correct.
Like, even when you feel like the world's falling apart, or whether gas prices or interest rates or whatever, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. And I should always remember that, I guess. But anyway, all right. Did you have a good weekend?
I did. Nice holiday weekend, dinner with friends yesterday. It was lovely.
Yeah. I drug my wife to the movie Air, the
nice.
story of Michael Jordan.
Air
and
Jordan,
she was like, this was definitely not my movie, Brett. It was awesome.
I'm sure you liked it.
Fulton County. So here's scoop: 521 active, 128 under contract, 339 pending, and 236 closed. If I come down here to the chart, Mark, you can see in most of the data this week that the numbers went backwards a little bit. And it's typical after a 3-day holiday weekend, the numbers kind of stall a little bit.
Especially in the middle of the month.
Of course, the leader in me wants to go, oh no, get out there and do an open house and make sure you catch all the buyers. They're serious. And we always talk about it. And if I'm being real on the stats call, it usually softens the numbers on a holiday weekend.
It does.
Yeah. Don't tell anybody.
And all the closings that actually did happen on Friday, the agents didn't turn them in for the most part yet.
Yeah. So they're not in MLS. So yeah, these numbers are a little soft. Yet I'm expecting the numbers to kind of bounce back up the next week. Inventory. If I'm looking at this active line, the pink line here, where we're sitting right now, it's kind of, if you just kind of average out the last few months, we're kind of low.
Yeah, the number of sales, I was looking earlier at some stats for the sort of city of Atlanta, just to get a sense of what's that's looking like compared to the rest of the greater MLS area. And the city of Atlanta, we're at about 80% of where we were in 2019 in March, as far as number of sales. So we're definitely lower in our number of units that are being closed across the board.
Yeah, for sure. But I also think, we usually talk about the bell curve and how the bell curve usually takes off in the slow January, little bit busier February, and it usually is up and going by March. Yeah. I actually feel like the bell curve this year got pushed to April. And most of our offices, when I go look at pending stats, April's looking really strong.
Yeah, I get notified every time we have a pending, because as it changes in FMLS, I see a copy of the marketing that goes out for it. And I've seen a lot of under contracts in the past week or two.
Yeah. So I think in April and May and June are going to be really strong months. If I'm looking at DeKalb, same kind of story. The numbers were a little soft. 288 active, 85 active under contract, 212 pending, and 141 closed. Of course, you can always go to the realestatestats.com and get to these. But you can see here, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to not talk about the numbers, but it's kind of just a soft week because of the holiday, and next week will tell us a whole lot more.
Right.
But I'll just hit Cobb County real quick. Real quick. Same deal. 268 active, down from the last couple of weeks. 102 under contract and 219 pending and 149 closed. you can just see the trajectory of that just kind of soften for 1 week, and it'll bounce next week.
For sure.
I mean, you think about it, like, do homeowners put their house on the market before an Easter holiday?
No,
Probably
typically
not, or a
not.
Passover holiday, right? Or
Right.
nonetheless, they usually wait in the week after. Um,
Right.
and it's just one of those lines in the sand on a calendar, right? That says,
Yep.
well, I want to put my house on the market after blank date, right?
Right.
All right, so we'll leave it there. Anything else you'd like to add around numbers this week?
No, I think you're dead on. I think the holidays, and the middle of the month is always a little bit softer anyway, because people tend to close right at the end of the month. So I think the numbers will sort of shake out, and we're still going to see it's still pretty strong for the month overall.
Yep. So Mark, I want to take just a minute. If you click on stats events on the realestatestats.com, this is where you actually register for we're doing an ITP presentation and an OTP presentation
Correct.
and this Wednesday. So I think there's last I looked, maybe like 40 seats left at the in-town one. So it will sell out. And it's a limited seating. So you do have to get your ticket. It doesn't cost you anything. Just click this button and register so we can save you a seat.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what people can expect too is like it's a bigger version of this conversation, right?
Oh, I've got 67 slides we're going over in that presentation already.
Nice.
So there's a lot of data, a lot of cool conversations. It's a much more in-depth presentation that our intentions are to do this once a quarter after the quarter's over. And then obviously we do the running stats, if you will, on this call and talk about the trends. So it should be really, really powerful. I would certainly tune in. Mark, I found this article really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I hate, excuse me, but the Atlanta Business Chronicle doesn't like to give you the headlines the right way.
Yeah.
So the Atlanta County's population bounces back after pandemic declines. I find this really interesting. So they talked about DeKalb and Fulton County specifically. And, major cities over time have these migration patterns.
Yep.
Right. So always in the beginning of a big city, there's the center nucleus of the city. And then as it grows, people tend to grow to the suburbs. And typically schools follow suburbs and things like that. But then as traffic patterns pick up, sometimes people start to move back into the city for convenience and commuting and things like that. And certainly traffic's a big deal in Atlanta if you've been here for more than 2 weeks. And the pandemic kind of changed that a little bit. Like, I think a lot of people moved out of the city a little bit during the pandemic because they didn't have to live there.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things happen. Like, one is that people moved out because they thought, well, I can work from anywhere now.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people, their job has changed and said, well, we want you back at least a couple of days a week. And then, sometimes people moved out there. I know I've seen people who've moved within that 2-year period because the dream of living out in the suburbs wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And they still like to come and hang out with their friends in town and that kind of thing. So whatever the disconnect is between what the dream was and what the reality is, it was bigger than they anticipated. So they're moving back in town. So I've seen that a lot too.
Yeah. So I find it interesting because there's certainly a migration pattern going on. And this article is just kind of one of the first times we've really read about it, to be honest. But it's interesting. And this talks about July to July last year, led Metro Atlanta in population growth. Well, we get that, right? 12,000 residents were at a net of 12,000 residents to Fulton County. That's a lot, considering, there's not a lot of new construction going on in Fulton County.
Right.
So
lots of new apartments going up though.
Yeah. And DeKalb County had 3,500 net population growth over that same 12-month period. That's quite a bit, right? If you think
Mhm.
about it, let me just pull this back up real quick. Um, mm, mm, the population in the city of Atlanta, do you know it?
Off the top of my head, no.
I have it right here, so I don't have to know it.
Perfect.
Um, mm, mm, mm.
And this is City of Atlanta, not Greater Atlanta,
This is Metro Atlanta.
Metro Atlanta. Okay.
So 6.2 million.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you talk about uh, those numbers, like 12,000 residents, it's not a huge number in retrospect to 6.2 million. It's still a considerable amount of people moving in and out because you realize of those 6.2 million, not that many are moving every year, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anything else about this that was worthy of a talking point?
No, I mean, I think you again, you hit the nail on the head. I think it's just interesting to see that well, we took a dip for a couple of years during the pandemic. A lot of that's been reversed, and now we're sort of in the black again.
There you go. Um, all right, let's move to this conversation. So, Mark, I'm going to set this up and then I'm going to hand it to you. In the
Okay.
book, The Shift, um, Gary talks about how the two things you can do as a real estate professional to bring value to the table around a listing or a transaction is really positioning of a property, right?
Mhm.
And outside of external marketing, staging is really the internal marketing inside the house and how it looks, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then pricing's the other one. But I think staging to me is a little bit like our industry right now. In pre-pandemic, we did a lot of things to cause real estate success to happen, like prospecting, like lead
Right.
generation, like staging. And you didn't really stage houses when they were selling in 30 hours. So but now I'm thinking, what percentage of our agents are even uh talking about staging at the listing table these days? Is it
Right.
even part of the conversation again? Because I think the popularity of this has waned as a result of the market. But I
Mhm.
think it's probably time to start talking about it again. Like, what does this look like? What does this conversation really mean?
Well, and knowing how to have that conversation with your sellers too, right, is going to be the key thing there, because they will get more typically for a staged house, but more importantly, it's going to sell it faster because it's going to appeal to a broader variety of people that don't have to visualize past whatever the seller's done with the property, right? Like that's where we've come in with our expertise in the stagers. We make it more attractive to more people so that it's more likely to get an offer more quickly. I think
100%.
that's the conversation that we have to be having, because a lot of sellers don't want to invest in staging because they don't see the value. So it's our job to sort of demonstrate that value.
Absolutely. Deborah, you raised your hand.
Hey, I want to remind everyone with the Keller offers, and I think something weird's going on with them right now, but for now, uh, if the seller, to piggyback what Mark just said, the seller is having a hard time paying for it up front, it can be purchased through the Keller concierge.
It can.
Mhm.
That's one thing, and then paid for at closing. And then also prior to family reunion, and then there was a big push at family reunion, which I'm a member of now, is the KW style to design, where they
Mm.
create the mood boards for you, or they call them something else, but they're mood boards. And you can also buy the furniture, and they have all those different things. We have calls on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on new ideas and things like that to help you if you're not someone who's very design savvy to do it, whether you hire someone local or use the service of Keller Concierge, or you join this style by design where you create a separate business so that that's another spoke in your wheel of income.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's a great service. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we just had a time with them in our office, and they provide a lot of value.
100%. And Mark, I tongue in cheek say I would say a good chunk of our agents have not had um, the opportunity of having the seller call them every Friday asking them or every
Mhm.
Monday asking why their house hadn't sold yet.
Right. Right.
And this is
What else
really
we could be
that
doing?
conversation, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Absolutely. Well, if you stack your value on the front end, then it makes the back end easier.
yeah. So Amy, Keller Concierge does not dictate which seller you use. As long as you're using the Revive, what is it? I forget the name of the company that Keller Concierge uses right now, but what is it?
Revive.
Revive. As long as you're using the Revive Lite program, which is what they use in Atlanta, you get to choose whatever stager you want. Perfect. All right, Mark. 5 ways to nurture your client through a shifting market.
Yeah.
Obviously, make it a conversation, right?
Right.
I mean, I like to believe, Mark, that the dialogue you create on here, the dialogue I create on here, helps people in conversations with your clients, right?
I hope so. Yeah. And I think the other key there is just to make sure that we're actually driving the conversation. Like you're not waiting for your clients to have concerns or fears or be stressed about real estate. Like you're bringing it to them before it gets to that point.
100%. And just kind of to go further down, give them context for the current market conditions. That's what this whole stats presentation is on Wednesday. And that's what we do these calls for every Monday afternoon, is just to give you the context, because me on here saying, hey, Mark, numbers were a little soft because it was a holiday weekend. And your seller calls you this afternoon and goes, hey, why isn't my house sold?
Mhm.
I would hope you'd be quoting us saying, hey, the market was a little soft over the weekend because it was a holiday weekend. Let me show you these stats.
Right.
And then it's logic, not emotion, right? And that's kind of the goal in nurturing somebody, is to keep it unemotional and get it back to a logical conversation, right?
Well, because all they're seeing is the national news, and right,
Of course.
they're hearing all of the housing markets suffering because of high interest rates. That's what they're still hearing.
Yep. And then use numbers and data when you can. That's what we want to bring to you. You're going to get a giant presentation Wednesday. And certainly you have the data from the real estate stats as well. And chart masters and all the above. Clearly set expectations. Mark, if I called you to list my house today, what expectation would you be telling me as a seller? I'm a atypical sell at listing, $500,000. What expectation?
I think there's a couple of things. One is you want to manage their expectations around price, right? You want to make sure that they understand that while it's going to be a busy time in the next couple of months, it's not like it was a year and a half ago. So I'd rather get the seller's expectations down. And then if we exceed them, great. They think we're a rock star, right? But if I think on the front end, you want them to be tempering their expectations on price and help them understand that if we set a value price that people find makes them want to make an offer, then there's a good chance that it'll work on multiple people. And if the price is too low, the market will force it up, and help them understand it's better to go that route than to overprice in the beginning. So setting expectations around pricing. The other one is around timing and helping them understand that there's a good chance it's going to take 20 to 30 days to go under contract. And again, every neighborhood's different. So you have to look and see what's happening in that neighborhood. But you want to set expectations around how long it's going to be on the market and shoot high so that they are comfortable that, if it doesn't sell in the first weekend, they are not stressed out, because a lot of sellers are expecting to sell within hours, because those are the Facebook stories they see from their friends.
Absolutely. And they only hear the hero stories. They don't hear the normal story or the
Right.
or the bad story. I guess you might hear the bad story, but the
Right.
normal story is not normally told, right?
Exactly. People aren't going out there bragging that, they sold something in 2, 3, 4 weeks. they're bragging, I sold it in this many hours or this many days.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I appreciate all your insight. I'm going to save some of these other conversations for our presentation on Wednesday.
Mhm.
And Jeff, you had asked about Keller Concierge. I actually interviewed them last week and recorded it. So our cyberbackers in the process of editing the video right now, and I'm going to have it up on the YouTube page. It's pretty simple. It's basically like a $25,000 loan. And then there's some events that cause that money to be due. And it's not a nick on their credit report. It's just basically a loan against the value of their property. And it's
Cool.
pretty simple.
I'm only thinking about, like, Keller offers. What can they do for me to buy and sell? But never thought about staging.
Oh yeah, it's a big deal. This Revive, I keep messing it up. Revive,
Wow.
they're a third party company that if you go to Keller, well, here, I'll just pull it up here. If you go to kelleroffers.com online and this ready to sell program right here, if you click this, it's going to take you, let you put in your address and you start over and it goes to this Revive company. And the other way to do it is if you go to revive.realestate, it's the same thing. It's just our Keller Offers pushes here. But they're all their programs are pretty amazing. But in Atlanta, they only roll with Revive Lite right now. And it's just because of their scalability. So what Revive Lite is basically a $25,000 loan to the seller for whatever, as long as they have equity and they'll sign the document that they'll pay at closing, or what are the four things? It's pay at closing, or if they fire you, they have to pay. So it's a retention tool to you as an agent. If they take their house off the MLS and stop marketing it, they have to pay, or 6 months. So those four things are the triggers that makes them have to pay. But outside of that, it's just a pretty easy $25,000 loan done to whatever they need to get their house on the market. So unless you're Mark Jones and you put all this crazy expensive stuff into your house when you remodel it, it's a pretty easy thing. And to Deborah's point, staging's included in what they will pay for.
Yep. Brent, I wanted to share a story from one of my agents, if you don't mind, because it was something that we showed on this. So I got this text the other day, and I'm just going to read it. Hey, Mark, I wanted to share just a couple of happenings over the last few days. I had a buyer that completely panicked about moving forward with a transaction after they had been completely pre-approved. Ultimately, I received a late night call saying they could not afford to move forward and that they would wait until the market cooled off. I hung up the phone and assumed it was a lost client for at least a year and felt like I didn't do a good job of educating them and handling the objection. Then I remembered the calculator you shared with us a while back on FMLS about renting versus buying and the costs. I shared it with them and provided real market information and what it means to wait. They ended up sitting down and doing a personal budget, and it resulted they would have a surplus of funds after paying a mortgage, and that it made more sense to move forward with purchasing today versus waiting. We're now under contract with seller offering $10,000 in closing costs, all because I took the time to use that calculator. So I just wanted to give a plug to that FMLS should I rent or should I buy calculator? Because if you have people that are renters right now, it is hands down the best tool to show people why they shouldn't wait.
100%. And that's something we shared on this call. So hopefully everybody has a copy of that. But anyway, happy Monday. Hopefully I'll see everybody on Wednesday. See you soon.
See you then.